Your body is not broken. Your body is not failing. Your body is not aging badly or reacting randomly or mysteriously turning against itself. Your body is doing something far more specific than any of that, and once you understand what it is actually doing and why, everything that has been confusing about your health will suddenly make a different kind of sense. Here is what is happening. You are a modern person living in a modern world, but you are running on ancient hardware. Hardware that was built, tested, and refined over 2.5 million years of human evolution. Hardware that is extraordinarily sophisticated, extraordinarily resilient, and extraordinarily well suited for a world that no longer exists. And the gap between the world your body was built for and the world it is now being asked to operate in, that gap, that mismatch, is the real reason that chronic inflammation has become the defining health crisis of our time. Not a mystery, not bad luck, not genetics alone. A mismatch, and today we are going to go all the way to the root of it, in a way that no diet article, no wellness trend, and no supplement label has ever fully explained, because understanding the root is the only thing that actually changes what you do about it. Let me start with a story, because this is not abstract biology. This is something that is happening inside real people every single day. Carol is 57 years old and she has been fighting her own body for the better part of a decade. She has chronic joint pain that her doctor calls arthritis. She has fatigue that starts in the morning and does not lift. She has skin that flares unpredictably. She has a digestive system that seems to react to foods that never bothered her before. She has been told her C-reactive protein, a marker of systemic inflammation in the blood, is elevated. She has been given anti-inflammatories. They help for a while and then they do not. She has tried elimination diets and supplements and has had a dozen conversations with different doctors, none of whom have ever explained to her why her immune system seems permanently switched on. Nobody told Carol that her immune system is not malfunctioning. It is responding exactly as it was designed to respond to a set of inputs it was never designed to receive, and that those inputs come from the food she eats 3 times a day, every single day, in a form that did not exist anywhere on Earth until about 70 years ago. That is the story we are going to tell today, and we are going to tell it from the beginning, from the ancient body that you are living in, because that is where the answer actually lives. Your immune system evolved for a specific purpose: protect the body from genuine threats, bacteria, viruses, parasites, physical injury. When a real threat appeared, the immune system would respond with inflammation, a powerful, targeted, short-duration biological response that floods the affected area with immune cells, raises local temperature to kill pathogens, and initiates the repair process. Then, when the threat was neutralized, the inflammation would resolve. The system would power down. The body would return to baseline. That is how inflammation is supposed to work. It is designed to be acute, purposeful, time-limited, and it is one of the most remarkable defense mechanisms in all of biology. The problem is that this system, brilliant as it is, was calibrated for an ancient world. A world where food threats were biological, where the only inflammation triggers were things the immune system was actually designed to fight, and it was never given the opportunity to evolve a response to something it has never encountered before in 2.5 million years of human history, the modern ultra-processed food supply. Here is the number that anchors everything we are about to discuss. Ultra-processed foods, industrially manufactured products packed with additives, artificial ingredients, refined sugars, and seed oils now make up nearly 60% of the daily calorie intake of the average American adult, and almost 70% of what American children eat every single day. 60% of daily calories from something that did not exist in any form recognizable to the human body until the middle of the 20th century. Let that sit for a moment. 2.5 million years of human evolution, 70 years of ultra-processed food. The human genome has not changed meaningfully in that time. The food supply has been completely transformed, and the immune system, which was never designed to receive these inputs, is doing the only thing it knows how to do when it detects something foreign and potentially threatening. It responds continuously, because the input never stops. This is chronic inflammation, not a disease, not a malfunction, a mismatch running around the clock. Now let us get specific about the mechanisms, because this is where the science becomes genuinely revealing and where most conversations about inflammation stop too early. The first mechanism is the omega-6 2-OMEGA23 catastrophe. Your body builds its inflammatory signaling molecules, the chemical messengers that tell the immune system to attack, primarily from fatty acids. Specifically, it builds pro-inflammatory molecules from omega-6 fatty acids and anti-inflammatory molecules from omega-3 fatty acids. This system requires balance. When omega-3 exists in a roughly balanced ratio, the immune system can mount a response, resolve it, and return to baseline. The ancient human diet provided these fats in a ratio of approximately 2:1, or at most 4:1. That ratio kept the inflammatory response calibrated. The modern American diet delivers omega-6 and omega-3 in a ratio of somewhere between 15:1 and 25:1. Some researchers have measured ratios as high as 40:1 in people who consume a typical Western diet. The primary driver of this catastrophic imbalance is vegetable oil, soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, which now permeates virtually every processed food, every fast food restaurant, and most home kitchens in America. These oils are extraordinarily high in omega-6, and they replace the animal fats and olive oils that previous generations cooked with. The consequence of this imbalance is direct and biological. When omega-6 fatty acids vastly outnumber omega-2-3, the body produces an overwhelming excess of pro-inflammatory signaling molecules and insufficient anti-inflammatory resolution molecules. The immune system gets the signal to attack. It does not get the signal to stop. And the result is an immune system that is chronically, structurally biased toward inflammation. Not because of any pathology, but because of the raw material it is being given to work with every single meal. The second mechanism is refined sugar and its relationship with the most powerful inflammatory switch in the human body. Inside your cells, there is a molecular switch called NF-κB nuclear factor kappa B. Think of it as the master control panel for the inflammatory response. When NF-κB is activated, it switches on dozens of genes involved in producing inflammatory signaling molecules, interleukin-6 tumor necrosis, factor alpha, C-reactive protein. These are the same markers that show up elevated on blood tests in people with chronic inflammatory conditions. When NF-κB is quiet, the inflammatory response stays calibrated. Refined sugar, the concentrated, rapidly absorbed, fiber-free sugar that exists in soft drinks, pastries, sweetened breakfast cereals, flavored yogurts, and hundreds of other products, activates NF-κB directly and powerfully. Every spike in blood glucose from refined sugar triggers an NF-κB response. Every spike produces a wave of pro-inflammatory molecules, and in a person consuming the average American amount of added sugar, which is more than double the maximum recommended level, those waves are arriving multiple times a day, every day, compounding on each other, never fully resolving before the next one begins. This is how a daily diet that feels normal produces a C-reactive protein level that a doctor looks at and says you have systemic inflammation. Not because something is wrong with the person, because something is wrong with the input the person's immune system is receiving 60% of its daily calories from. The third mechanism is perhaps the most surprising one, and it connects the modern food supply to the gut in a way that explains why chronic inflammation so often shows up as conditions that seem completely unrelated to digestion. The human gut microbiome, the ecosystem of trillions of bacteria living in your intestinal tract, is one of the primary regulators of the immune system. Approximately 70% of your immune tissue is located in and around the gut. The bacteria that live there communicate constantly with that immune tissue, training it, calibrating it, and helping it distinguish between genuine threats and harmless inputs. When the gut microbiome is diverse and well-fed, that calibration works. When it is disrupted, the immune system loses its most important moderating influence, and the inflammatory response becomes untethered. The ancient human gut microbiome was extraordinarily diverse. The Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last remaining true hunter-gatherer populations on Earth, consume roughly 100 grams of fiber per day from an enormous variety of wild plants, roots, tubers, and fruits. The average American consumes between 12 and 15 grams. The diversity of plant species that the Hadza eat across a single year numbers in the hundreds. The average American regularly eats fewer than 20 distinct plant foods. That fiber, specifically, the variety and quantity of it, is what feeds the beneficial bacteria that produce the short-chain fatty acids that regulate the gut lining and calibrate the immune system. Ultra-processed foods do the opposite on every dimension. They are low in fiber, low in plant variety, high in emulsifiers and additives that directly damage the gut lining and reduce microbial diversity. And with each reduction in microbial diversity, the immune system loses another moderating voice. It becomes easier to activate, harder to calm, more reactive to inputs that a well-calibrated immune system would handle without response. This is why Carol and millions of people like her have a digestive system that seems to react to foods that never bothered them before. It is not that those foods changed. It is that the microbiome that used to moderate the response to them has been progressively depleted by decades of a diet that starved it. The fourth mechanism is advanced glycation end products, and this one is almost entirely absent from the public conversation about inflammation, which is remarkable because it is everywhere in the modern diet. When proteins or fats are exposed to sugar, either in the body after a high sugar meal, or during the cooking and manufacturing of food, they form compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. Your body has receptors for AGEs called RAGE receptors, and when AGEs bind to RAGE receptors, they activate NF-κB and trigger a powerful pro-inflammatory cascade. This is a normal part of the body's defense mechanism. It was designed to respond to a small amount of these compounds. The problem is that the modern food supply delivers AGEs in quantities that dwarf anything the human body evolved to handle. AGEs form abundantly during high-heat industrial food processing, frying, baking, roasting at extreme temperatures. The Maillard reaction that browns food, ultra-processed snack foods, fast food, commercially baked goods, processed meats, all of these are among the highest sources of dietary AGEs in the American food supply. And every serving is triggering RAGE receptors, activating NF-κB, and adding another layer to the chronic inflammatory load that Carol's immune system is carrying every single day. Now let us put all four mechanisms together, because when you see them as a system rather than as isolated factors, the picture becomes undeniable. The average American wakes up and starts the day with a breakfast of refined cereal, high in refined sugar, low in fiber, cooked and processed at high heat, delivering AGEs and triggering NFKB before the morning is over. They eat a lunch of processed bread, processed deli meat, and a sweetened drink, adding omega-6 from seed oils, more refined sugar, more AGEs, and more emulsifiers that disrupt the gut lining. They have an afternoon snack from a package, more processed ingredients, more additives, more microbiome disruption. And dinner often involves food cooked in vegetable oil or ordered from a restaurant doing the same. Every single meal is sending a signal to an ancient immune system that was calibrated for inputs it has not received since the modern food supply was invented. And that immune system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is responding to perceived threat continuously because the threat signal never stops. The result is Carol. It is the 40% of American adults with at least one chronic inflammatory condition. It is the exploding rates of autoimmune disease, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, and neurological conditions that track the rise of the ultra-processed food supply with disturbing precision across the same decades. Now here is the practical framework, because you have an ancient body and you are living in a modern world and you cannot simply go back. But you can make specific, achievable changes that speak a language your immune system actually understands. Rule number 1. Shift the fat ratio deliberately. Replace vegetable oils in your home kitchen with olive oil for lower heat and avocado oil for higher heat. Add fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel at least twice a week. These are among the richest sources of the omega-3 fatty acids that your body uses to build anti-inflammatory resolution molecules. You do not need to eliminate omega-6 entirely. You need to stop the 20-to-1 ratio from running unchecked. Even moving it to 10-to-1 produces measurable reductions in inflammatory markers over weeks. Rule number 2. Feed your microbiome what it evolved to receive, not a probiotic supplement, fiber specifically. Variety of fiber from a variety of plant sources, because different bacterial species in the gut feed on different types of plant fiber. And diversity of plant intake directly drives diversity of microbiome, which directly improves immune calibration. Aim for 30 different plant foods per week. That sounds like a lot until you realize that herbs, spices, nuts, seeds, and all vegetables and fruits count, and that 3 tablespoons of mixed seeds on your yogurt in the morning alone covers 4 to 5 species before you have left the house. Rule number 3. Reduce the refined sugar load, not by going sugar-free but by replacing the refined with the whole fruit instead of juice. Whole grains with intact fiber structure instead of refined flour products. The sugar in whole fruit arrives with fiber that moderates its absorption speed, its NFKB activation, and its glycation potential. The immune system was designed to handle sugar arriving slowly, wrapped in fiber, across a day of eating varied whole foods. It was not designed for the concentrated, rapid, fiber-free delivery that refined sugar and refined flour provide. Rule number 4. Cook more of your own food from whole ingredients. This is the single most powerful intervention available to any person living in a modern food environment. Because when you cook from whole ingredients, you control the oils, you eliminate the emulsifiers, you dramatically reduce the age load from industrial processing, and you give your gut microbiome the fiber and phytonutrients it was designed to run on. You do not need to cook elaborate meals. You need to cook real ones: an egg, a piece of fish, a bowl of legumes with vegetables. These are not dietary ideologies. They are ancient inputs that an ancient immune system knows exactly what to do with. Rule number 5. Understand that this is not about perfection. It is about signal shifting. Your immune system is not a switch that is either on or off. It is a continuous biological calculation based on the inputs it receives. Every meal that reduces the ultra-processed load and increases the whole food signal shifts that calculation slightly toward resolution and away from activation. The effect is cumulative. Researchers who have tracked inflammatory markers in people who shift their diet away from ultra-processed foods consistently find measurable reductions in C-reactive protein, interleukin-6, and other inflammation markers within weeks, not months or years. Weeks, because the body is always responding to what it is currently receiving. The ancient biology that has been working against you in a modern food environment will work for you the moment the inputs begin to change. Here is the deeper truth I want to leave you with. Carol is not sick because her body is broken. Carol is a human being whose extraordinarily capable ancient immune system is running in an environment it was not built for, responding to inputs it was never designed to receive with the only tools it has. The mismatch is not her fault. It was not her choice. She did not design the food supply that replaced whole foods with ultra-processed ones in 2 generations. She did not decide that 60% of American calories would come from industrially manufactured products that the human immune system has no evolutionary framework for. She simply lived in the world that was built around her and ate the food that was presented to her as normal. But now she knows what is actually happening. And knowing, truly knowing, at the level of mechanism and biology is what changes the calculation from overwhelming to navigable. Your body is not your enemy. It is an ancient, sophisticated, remarkably loyal system doing its absolute best with what you are giving it. Give it something closer to what it was built for, and it will respond in kind. If this video finally gave you the real explanation for something you have been living with for years, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Wellness Over Time, because next week we are going into the specific blood tests that measure chronic inflammation directly, and how to have the conversation with your doctor that actually gets you the answers your body has been waiting for.